la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la.
Shabbat Shalom. So Isaac and I were talking yesterday, planning out the service, getting ready to lead prayer with you. And he said something that reminded me of the following parable that I first learned from David Foster Wallace. It goes like this. There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys. How's the water?" The two young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other one and goes, "What in the world is water?" For the fish, they live in a world where they couldn't imagine a life without water. It's like us trying to imagine living in a world and appearing and having no air to breathe. It's just a part of their existence, a part of their daily lives. And I was thinking about this a lot for a variety of reasons. First of which is, as I look out, I see many of you not wearing masks. Some of you are. But I think about my youngest son. To him, he would look around and say, of course, it's perfectly normal that people wear masks when they're wandering about. He's 2.5 years old. He's never known a world where that has not been the case. It's like water. Same thing, and the reason this even came up to me is when Isaac and I were talking, and he said, "How are we feeling about the situation in Ukraine?" And I said, honestly, it has been a month. It is still a part of our every day, but unfortunately, it's becoming more like water. More like just the currency that happens around us, and we just kind of know it's there, but we're not necessarily talking about it with the same sense of urgency we were a month ago. And I'm not saying this to disparage anything. This is actually part of the experience of being human and what allows us to function as human beings. If we had the same pressing weight of things like that every single moment of every single day, we wouldn't be able to function. So, as we consider the week that was, as we consider the Shabbat that we're about to embrace, I'll ask us to think about maybe those things that may have flitted in the back of our minds become a little bit more like the water surrounding those fish, but we want to lift up in our prayers this Shabbat. Take a moment of silence with me. Whatever you wanted to bring to mind, I hope that it inspires your prayer in greater depth and greater meaning throughout the Shabbat. I'm honored to be leading you in services this evening. My name is Rabbi David Levy. I'm joined by Isaac Sanadasur, our cantorial intern. Pete Malinverni is at the piano. Jerome Morris is at percussion. Idan Sandhaus is at flute, not to be confused with Idan Waldman, who is helping us with our tech. And we are also joined by Elaine Rosenstein, a vice president of the congregation, and I'm actually going to ask her now to kindle the lights of Shabbat.
Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen.
Amen.
And let us say, Amen.
Service continues on page 128 at the foot of the page.
With these words and this melody that come from the Ukraine by the great poet Chaim Nachman Bialik and the composer Pinchas Minkowski, Shabbat HaMalka. Hachama merosh ha'ilanos nistalka, bo'u v'neitzei likrat Shabbat HaMalka, hinei hi yoredet hakdosha habrucha, ve'ima melachim tzva shalom u'menucha. Hachama merosh ha'ilanos nistalka, bo'u v'neitzei likrat Shabbat HaMalka, hinei hi yoredet הקדושה הברוכה, ועמה מלאכים צבא שלום ומנוחה. בואי בואי המלכה, בואי בואי הכלה. שלום עליכם מלאכי השלום. בואי בואי המלכה, בואי בואי הכלה. שלום עליכם מלאכי השלום.
Page 138, we'll offer verses 1, 2, 5, and 9.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת לקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת לקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, בשמו לתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת לקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת לקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם משוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת לקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת לקבלה. התעוררי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה.
Page 146.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vahed.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. Page 148, with this blessing for the change of time and the change of seasons. We'll come back to that melody from the very beginning with this melody for the springtime. תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבים. Page 150. אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו, ובהם נגה Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod, Shem
Page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
As we turn ahead to Micha Mocha, we remember the core of the teaching of this prayer, which is that our world can and should become better. We know that because our people crossed the sea safely because God was with us, and so too, we dream of a world that is more whole, more complete, and we know that we can only do that by working together. Micha Mocha, page 158.
Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
The benefit of standing where I am standing is I got to see some of you look at me like, I don't know if I know this melody. But then by the end, you were all singing along with me. So all I want to say is, if you enjoyed that, if you appreciated that, I think the cantors still have a few more classes with the composer that Cantor Kleinman and Cantor Rodniski has been leading with Alana Arian, who wrote that beautiful melody. She also wrote the Hine Matov, so many of us have come to love. So if you want to learn more about it, Thursday nights, I believe there's one more session. But if there isn't, I know we have them archived.
We'll continue in just a moment with our prayer for voicing all of those fears that we enter the night with. And I'm thinking this week about just a small part of our Torah portion in which we encounter the idea that Aaron, the high priest, blesses the people of Israel. And we know these words so famously from so many of the life cycle events that we go through as a congregation. These words, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, may God bless you and keep you. And there are 3 of these blessings. What's so interesting about this portion is that we don't actually receive the words that Aaron is told to convey to the people of Israel. And the commentators are divided about whether or not the words with which Aaron blessed the people were in fact these words, or maybe that they were some blessing on the way to what would become the priestly blessing, these words that are not quite fully formed. And so as we turn to one of these blessings that is so deep within our souls of what we need, this need for protection day in and day out, we sometimes need the words that are provided to us in our prayer book, and other times we may find those words just deep within our hearts. And maybe that there's someone in our life who is in need of a particular blessing this evening, and you are struggling with the words to give that person. And just the fact that you are able to give them that love, that is worth any possible beautiful word of blessing. So as we continue with this blessing over our fears, all of the things that keep us up at night, may we turn to each other for support. Page 160. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, leshalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shalomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shalomecha. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us right wrong from right, O Adonai. Amen. 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 Amen.
page 162.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם, לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם, לדורותם ברית עולם. Page 164. Adonai sefati tiftach, Adonai sefati tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha, ufi yagid tehilatecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר, מושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו משני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Take these next moments for the prayer of the heart. You might be inspired by our prayer book or just by closing your eyes and saying what you need to say to God. We continue together in silence, and you'll let us know that you've completed your prayer when you take your seat.
יברכך אדוני וישמרך, יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך, יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום, 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 שלום. יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום, שלום, שלום.
One of the guiding principles of the design of this prayer space that we're in right now is a feeling of closeness. I remember when I took a tour with Amy Lemley, a past president of the congregation, she reminded me or shared with me, because I didn't know it before, that when they built this space, the furthest seat in the back was far closer than the seats were in the old sanctuary. We wanted to make sure that when we were praying in this space, we didn't feel so far away, we didn't feel disconnected from the people who were up here. Unfortunately, there are always things that will disconnect. Moments where you can be up here and I can do the best job that I can, but at the same time, I may not reach you because it's possible maybe there's a language barrier. There is some other way in which I'm unable to connect with you. And it was so powerful and so enriching and so exciting when I and the whole clergy team got an email from Carly Gellis, a member of our community and a student at Scarsdale High School, who said to us, I loved and was inspired on the high holidays when I was younger, where I would come and I would see someone doing ASL interpretation on the bima to ensure that the barrier between those up here and those down there was as low as possible. And how excited she would be at the opportunity and prospect to come and offer ASL interpretation as a part of our service. And I said, I cannot wait for that to happen. So I'm so excited to invite her up. So Carla, if you join me up here. For those of you who are sitting over there, the only thing I'll say is she'll be offering live ASL interpretation. I hope that you can see. But if you want to move, no one will be offended. If you wanted to come and sit over here, if you want to stay where you are, that's totally fine. I never want to move people from their seats. But wanted to make sure that was offered as an opportunity. And I know that those of you joining us via our live web stream will have clear and easy access. Thank you, Edon. 'Twas down in Mississippi, not so long ago, when a young boy from Chicago town stepped through a southern door. The boy's dreadful tragedy I can still remember well. The color of his skin was black, and his name was Emmett Till. They say that imitation is the highest form of flattery, but at the same time, it feels odd to be quoting Bob Dylan to all of you. Not because I have anything against the amazing singer-songwriter, but because I have been so accustomed to learning about Bob Dylan from Rabbi Blake. Yet, this song struck a chord with me this year, no pun intended, as I thought about the legislation that just passed Congress, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, which makes lynching a federal hate crime. You might be wondering why it took our country so long, and as I read about this legislation, I wondered the same thing. There have been hundreds of attempts to pass this legislation, beginning with the Dyer anti-lynching bill of 1918, 3 years after Leo Frank was lynched. The mob that lynched Leo Frank sparked the renewal of the KKK, calling themselves the Knights of Mary Fagin after the young woman who Leo Frank supposedly murdered in a pencil factory in Atlanta. This legislation has been stymied time and again until finally it passed almost unanimously, with only 3 legislators voting against it. Today, we memorialize this heinous crime in the hopes that what happened to him will never happen again. If you don't know the tale of Emmett Till, it was 1955. Till was a known stutterer and found it hard to communicate on a regular basis. He was accused of whistling at a white woman in a grocery store, and a mob formed to lynch him. Most historians blame the stutter. Emmett was one of the thousands of lynchings that spread racial terror throughout our country. As Dylan described, and then to stop the United States of yelling for a trial, Two brothers, they confessed that they had killed poor Emmett Till. But on the jury, there were men who helped the brothers commit this awful crime. And so this trial was a mockery, but nobody there seemed to mind. I saw the morning papers, but I could not bear to see the smiling brothers walking down the courthouse stairs, for the jury found them innocent, and the brothers, they went free, while Emmett's body floats the foam of a Jim Crow southern sea. In Portion Shmini, two brothers tragically die. Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, brought before Adonai foreign fire that God had not commanded them. And fire went forth from before God and consumed them. And Aaron was silent. Two questions have bothered our people for generations. First of all, why did they have to die? And secondly, why was Aaron silent? Our rabbinic ancestors have come up with countless reasons as to why these young men deserve to die. They were drinking wine as they entered the holy space. Because they were unmarried, they were arrogant or power hungry, or simply because they acted inappropriately. This year, I find no solace in any of these arguments, no wisdom in their explorations as to why these boys deserve to die. All I see in our text this year are two young men who made a mistake and died for it. 10 years ago, it was Trayvon Martin, gunned down on his way to buy Skittles because he made the mistake of wearing a hoodie. And sadly, countless other men before him and after him: Emmett Till, Jacob Blake, George Floyd, Eric Garner, and the thousands of young black men whose names we do not know, who were murdered in the name of God in our country. And too many of us have been like Aaron and are silent. Religious justification for murder remains a dark stain on the moral character of America. As the Southern Poverty Law Center reports, according to their propaganda, KKK members believe the Bible is the family history of the white race, who are morally and spiritually superior to other races. Their beliefs advocate that God created other races as mud people, who have beast-like roles and lower standing to white men. Such religious interpretation dehumanizes non-whites and provides spiritual justification and perhaps motivation to attack their enemies. Jim Crow laws represent an infamous implementation of this ideology, but there are unfortunately far more. Every year on my annual pilgrimage to the American South with our 8th graders and their parents, we visit so many places that memorialize the way our country could be better. That trip was one of the last things I did before COVID began. And next week at this time, Cantor Rodniski and I will be praying at Temple Beth Or in Montgomery, Alabama, with members of our congregational trip. One of the places we will visit is the Legacy Museum, a project of the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama. The museum ends with a series of facts about our country and asks us to speak out against them if we believe they are unjust, to not be like Aaron, who was silent, but to shout and to fight to ensure they change. One question focuses on the Alabama Constitution. It says, "Today, the Alabama state constitution still mandates that there be racial segregation in education with separate schools for white and colored children." Continues, "While barring black children from attending schools with white students is prohibited by federal law, the Alabama constitutional ban still exists And each and every time an effort to remove this language was voted on, predominantly white voters voted to keep this restriction in the state constitution. What does it mean that Alabama Constitution still prohibits racial integration in education, and what should be done about it? This is just one moment, one question, one challenge for us to not remain silent. Each question in that museum is a chance for us to look at the country we live in, the place we call home, and asks us not to be like Aaron, silently watching injustice when we could act. As Dylan's song ends, so shall we. If you can't speak out against this kind of thing, a crime that's so unjust, your eyes are filled with dead men's dirt. Your mind is filled with dust. Your arms and legs, they must be in shackles and chains. Your blood, it must refuse to flow. For you to let this human race fall down so god-awful low. This song's just a reminder to remind your fellow man that this kind of thing still lives today in that ghost-robed Ku Klux Klan. But if all of us folks that think alike, if we gave all we could give, we could make this great land of ours a greater place to live. Yasher Koach. It's hard sometimes to change the energy that I'm feeling. I am on goosebumps and excitement. I want to just thank again publicly, Carly. It was such a pleasure and such an honor to have you with me. But our service continues, and it continues in a way that could not feel more challenging and more different, but in some ways, just the same. We are being asked to speak up, to not be silent, and to raise our voices in prayer in the hopes that our prayers might impact those who are on beds of sickness, those who are hopefully on the path to healing, and that we are praying that they might reach that space of refuah shlema, space of complete healing. If you are thinking of someone this Shabbat, I'll ask you to rise and share their name with this holy community. As I've said many times over the past few weeks, and having made a number of personal phone calls, I know how everyone on this list is in dire need of healing, and also that it is much longer than it has been in a long time. Rachel Rackauer, Jennifer Leventhal, Judy Weiss, Steve Grodzinski, Sarah Horan, Linda Feldman, Reuven Avraham ben Mordechai Ve'ada, Donna Pertula, Grace Neidish, Avram Feivel ben Michel, Herschel ben Sarah, Abraham ben Miriam, Yitzhak Halevi ben Shalom, Elizabeth Hars, Barbara Feldman, Tony and Gina DeLappa, Matthew Atwood, Linda Byron Glucksman, Gloria Byron, Anthony and Elizabeth Dankner, Mordechai ben Yaakov, Deborah Kapnick, Nicole Schusse, Neil Glasgow, Leah Greenspan, Andrea Reiner, Masha Batsora, Aviva Tzila bat Esther Bela, Jeffrey Millman, Andrew Goldstein, Ken Master, Chava Batsara, Eliyahu Chaim ben Fredel, Sheila Freed, Malka Tzipora bas Rachel, Tamar bat Malka, Hershel Meir ben David Achana, and also the thousands upon thousands of the refugees who have been displaced by this horrible war, we offer Misha Berach, page 371.
The source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say
Aleinu L'Shabeach can be found on page 586. Please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. אמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
It is hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our lives have gone and naught but memory can fill the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what we were in company with those we loved, cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our loss. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world, and each one is the breath of the ultimate one. In affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one, whose life, now ended, brought us closer to the source of life, in whose unity no one is alone, and every life finds purpose. As we prepare to offer Kaddish Atom this Shabbat, I'll ask that we rise in the following order. If you're within the first 7 days of mourning your loved one, would you rise at this time? If you're within the first 30 days of remembering your loved one, would you rise at this time? If you're within the first year of remembering your loved one, would you rise at this time? Tonight marks a yard site, the anniversary of the passing of your loved one. Would you rise at this time? And I'll ask us now all to rise in sympathy and fellowship as we remember. We begin by remembering those most recently taken from us: Arthur Gordon, brother-in-law of Frida and Howard Weitz, husband of Lila Gordon, and father of Carrie Schlissel and Ellen Rubin. Susan Schlesinger, mother of Carrie Schlesinger. Richard Menon, father of Donna Sherry and grandfather of Phoebe and Stephanie Sherry. Rachel Levy, sister of Evelyn Stock. Gisa Magadman, grandmother of Dahlia Lenskis. Herbert Heller, brother of Mary Silk. Brian Chadroff, brother of Lisa Boxer. Walter P. Stern, husband of Betsy Stern and father of Sarah Mae Stern, William Stern, and David Stern. Stephen Blackman, brother of Michael Blackman. Charles Joseph Satcheloff, husband of Elaine Satcheloff, father of Amy Lemley and Nancy Abraham, and grandfather of John Lemley, Cliff Lemley, Tracy Levy, and Eden Abraham. And Blanche Silver, mother of Pam Rubin and Cheryl Bernstein. In the yard site, the anniversary of their passing, we remember James Allen, Felix Beck, Arthur A. Chaprack, Marcia Cohn, Sylvia Colby, David Dodez, Mariana Dranitz, Estelle Dreisen, Lot Ellertson, Ellie Ellis, Janet Ellis-Myman, Sonia Engelson, Donald Grant, Lawrence Fahrenbaker, Alan File, Clara Friedman, Florin Goodman, David Grossman, Susan Grossman, Asher Katz, Loris Keats, Rosalind Mandelker, Irving Menlo, Ron Meyer, Aaron Meyerson, Cecile K. Miller, Elaine H. Morse, Steve Neidish, Sylvia Orenstein, Robert Princer, Charlotte Guberman Rosenzweig, Lillian G. Schor, Felix Schnorr, Jerome Siegel, Al Singer, Walter Sullivan, Michael Tanser, and Jerome Weiner. If you have names to add to our commemoration, please share them at this time, or if I have inadvertently mispronounced your loved one's name, please say it aloud now. Zecher Tzadik Levracha, may the memory of all of these righteous be for blessing, as we offer Kadisha Tome, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, b'gala b'zman kariv v'yimru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Leolam Ulamei Almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal Shmeid Kudsha B'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Damiran be'alma v'yimru. Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen.
It's now my pleasure to invite Elaine Rosenstein to offer some announcements and words of greeting on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
Greetings. It's so nice to be here with all of you tonight this Shabbat. I ripped my paper, so it's making a lot of noise, sorry. So we have a few announcements. We have so much going on now that we're back in full swing this spring. So here you are with all the different things you can do at WRT. Right this weekend, we're having a big Passover food drive to send off to Ukraine for Jewish refugees leaving Ukraine. That shipment is going to be going out on Monday. So if you can bring your Passover kosher food this weekend, there are drop-off bins in the front. That will be all shipped out on Monday. And if you can volunteer to help sort and package all of that on Monday, you can find the information on who to contact in the weekly e-blast. We also have the WRJ Women's Seder and Men of Reform Judaism Passover Roundtable that will be on Zoom, and you can sign up for those two events through registration links that are in the e-blast or on the website. Let's see, what else? We have, the Men of Reform Judaism is doing a blood drive and a bone marrow swab drive, and that will be April 3rd. I think that is in partnership with Colamy. Is that correct? And you can learn more about that also on the website and in the e-blast. Our Scholar in Residence weekend is happening April 8th through 9th. So we hope we'll see you at the many different events that are planned for that weekend with Rabbi Dr. Wendy Zierler. And very big event. Everybody make sure to mark your calendars for May 20th through 22nd, when we'll be holding a big tribute and celebration weekend to send Rabbi Levy and Rabbi Reeser off with our blessings and good thoughts. And you can look for an email that's going to be coming soon. One has already gone out with a save the date, and all the details will be there for you to plan your attendance at that very important weekend. And that's it. We'd like to thank our greeter, Mike Rahimi, and a very special thank you to Carly Gellis for the amazing and very important ASL interpretation. Shabbat Shalom.
We are one small thing which you'll see, which is going to change a little bit over the next few weeks. Now that we have oneg and now that we're eating again together, we're trying to debate how are we going to do Kiddush and Motzi. Tonight we're experimenting with a slightly different way, which is at the conclusion of our concluding song, Isaac and I will walk to the back of the sanctuary. We're not going to ask you to leave the sanctuary. And we'll offer Kiddush and Motzi from there so that we can greet you at the oneg. Which is another exciting thing. We have Oneg Shabbat. We have, there's food that's going to happen, so we can kibitz over some snacks. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Isaac, what are we concluding with, since I forgot to print out my notes?
Just as we entered in the Shabbat angels at the beginning of our service, we'll close with just this last verse of Shalom Aleichem, bidding these angels to come again in peace, but maybe they won't depart too quickly. We hope that they'll stay with you through this Shabbat. And it's a blessing to spend this Shabbat with you, everyone. The words, if you would like to follow along, are on 142.
Please rise.
Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shuvchem L'Shalom. Shuvchem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom.
Are you? Sure.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. Reshabat kocho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, Mikol Amim, V'Shabbat Kodecha, Be'ahava uvratzon, Hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. L'chaim.
And the thing I cannot say, which I'm so used to saying, although maybe if you came with the person who you're standing next to, put your arms around them. Otherwise, I know, so like your level of comfort, I defer to all of you and how close you want to be to someone else as we offer motzi together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. B'te'avon, Shabbat Shalom.